Hello! Welcome to day number 12 and the second weekend where I'm going to share with you some of my favorite poems. Tonight I'm going to read a poem by Emily Dickinson. I have her complete works here. I discovered Emily Dickinson a number of years ago when I took a class at the University of Manitoba. The class was called Humans and Other Animals in 19th Century Literature. I only kind of half read the course description. I pretty much took it because the title of the course sounded interesting. And it was like a super awesome class. I also had no idea that when I signed up for the class that it was like an upper level English class. So there was 9 students and the professor, so there's 10 of us total. 7 of the students were working on their master's degrees in English literature, and 1 guy was in his 4th and final year of an honors degree in English lit. And then there was me working on my lowly arts degree. I was the least educated out of all the people there. But it really forced me to up my game, because it was all basically discussion classes. I remember after the first class, or second class in, we're sitting around, the professor walks in, and she starts her class by saying, "So, somebody tell me something." And that was how she launched. There was no lecture, there was no discussion starter. You were expected to bring something to class every week, and it was, so I had to really pretend I was smart. But it worked out alright. The class was super awesome. It was probably one of my favorite classes. But anyways, the class kind of centered around humans and their interactions with animals. So we read Emily Dickinson. We read what's the book with the whale, the white whale, Moby Dick. That was our main one. We read some Edgar Allan Poe. I kind of fell in love with Emily Dickinson as a result. So I'm going to read you one of my favorite poems of hers. This is poem number 793. She wrote, how many poems did she write? She wrote a lot of poems. Let's see here. She wrote 1,775 poems. The majority of her poems, just so you know, were published after her death. Her sister actually found a huge collection of just writing. She was a prolific writer, and she actually wanted her sister to get rid of all her papers, and I'm glad her sister did not follow through with that wish, because we would be left without a really great writer. So anyways, poem 793, also commonly called Grief is a Mouse. So here we go. Grief is a mouse, and chooses wainscot in the breast for his shy house and baffles quest. Grief is a thief, quick startled, pricks his ear, report to hear of that vast dark that swept his being back. Grief is a juggler, boldest at play, lest if he flinch the eye that way, pounce on his bruises, 1 say or 3. Grief is a gourmand, spare his luxury. Grief is tongueless, before he'll tell, burn him in the public square, his ashes will, possibly, if they refuse. How then know, since a rat couldn't coax a syllable now? Okay, so this poem is about grief, obviously, and the kind of the many forms that grief takes. So some of these are my ideas, some of these aren't my ideas. I've just kind of done a bunch of reading on this poem because it's one of my favorites. Emily kind of identifies 3 different ways, a mouse, a thief, and a juggler that grief is like. So the mouse, very quiet, it can hide in the breast, inside your heart, in the wainscot of the house, it's small, it's hidden, it's not easily found. Grief is a thief, it just kind of comes and it sneaks up on you and strikes, and then, it's very sudden. Grief is also a juggler. It can be really bold, but then it can, you can present yourself as I'm doing awesome, I'm really bold, I'm really doing all right, but then, if you flinch even, everything just comes crumbling down. Oh yeah, there's a 4th way. Grief is a gourmand. So a gourmand is somebody who's like a glutton, just eats and eats and eats. It just consumes. So yeah, she's identifying what grief is like and how to kind of overcome that grief. In the mouse, you have to find it and name it. As the juggler, you have to not be afraid to, let everything come crumbling down because it wants you to keep those plates and those, things going up. The Gourmand, it just says spare his luxury, like don't let it feed on you. And the last line there is, or the last kind of stanza, grief is tongueless. Burn him in the public square, his ashes, possibly if they refuse, how then know. So one thing I read today was like, sometimes your grief, it just doesn't have a voice. And even if you're to like burn it, like expose it, or burn it in the public square, so to speak, it won't give up its secrets. The way that I read into this is like, to identify, you have to like expose that grief, you have to like, present it for everybody, and then kind of like lay waste to it, like name whatever it is you're grieving over. Yeah, so that's just some thoughts about this poem, and if you have any other thoughts about it, feel free to leave a comment down in the description. And yeah, we'll see you tomorrow night for another one of my favorite poems. Okay, we'll see you then. Bye.